Hi, I'm Peter Tragos, host of the Lawyer You Know podcast and YouTube channel. The saying goes, everyone hates lawyers until you need one. Well, I'm here when you need one to answer your questions and give you insight that you didn't know you needed. Along with my partners, Pete Sardis, the professor, who has a finance and business background, and George Tragos, my dad, and the consigliere, a criminal defense giant, we can answer any questions you have. What's up, everybody, and welcome in to a first ever live from Montana. We're here on vacation, having a great time, and on the flight up, a lot of you saw, if you follow me on Instagram and Twitter, at Tragos Law, that I watched the Sins of Our Mother docuseries on Netflix, digging into this Lori Vallow Daybell case, and it is wild. One of my favorite things about the documentary was they really helped with the timeline to explain how everything happened, how each relationship worked, when the kids came into the picture different ways, through different relationships and adoption and different family settings, how those relationships progressed and eventually failed here and there, when they failed, why they failed, and what the next steps were. I really think the timeline that the docuseries was able to set up was incredibly helpful. There are two major takeaways I have from the docuseries and things that we learned and can really tell why, at least partially, why this case kind of spun out of control. And we're going to get to all that and more. And we do have a special guest with us tonight to give us a layperson's perspective on what they thought without knowing anything really about this case, watching the docuseries and some questions they have. All of you may guess who it is. And then, of course, we're going to get to your questions at the end. Yes, Sarah P., you should watch it. Hello, everyone. Hello, Brianna. Hello, Rose. Hello, Nicole and Paul and Mo and Lois and Lee and Joe and Azam. What up? Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us in here. This is going to be a lot of fun. Bev was here, but she can't make it for the actual live. You're welcome, Bev, as always, and good. She'll be part of the replay crew. You got a real one with you today, replay crew. What up, Rich, Kat, and Karen, and Tori? Listerine, hey, Peter. I sent you an email. I need a referral for a crash last night. Got hit head on by a guy running from the cops. Love your stuff. Listerine, when did you send the email? Because I checked my emails earlier today. I don't think I saw that. So let's talk privately about this, Listerine. Send an email to... Oh, you may have sent it to the lawyer you know at gmail.com. Okay, that makes sense. And if you did, I will check it out there. Let me shoot a text here to make sure we get it. And we'll be in touch real soon. All right, we will definitely talk about that. And if I can't help you, I will find somebody who can. All right. Okay, so let's dive in here. Got some people on here. Hit that like button, subscribe, do all the things that we'd like for you to do on YouTube. Yes, Listerine, we'll talk more about that. I hope you are okay. I'm glad you're okay enough to at least sit here and watch this video. But let's get into this Sins of Our Mother. And it really came down to the title of the video, and a lot of the background comes down to they were part of the LDS Church, the Church of the Latter-day Saints, Mormons, Joseph Smith, Book of Mormon. I don't disparage, any religion on here or people believing certain things, but there are a lot of branch offs of the Mormon religion. A lot of people come out, try to write new books or stories or have new visions that they try to branch off. We talked about the Branch Davidians with that Koresh, where Tim Riggins played that in a different Netflix series. So, people having these visions and trying to spin off parts of religions. That's how we get to, it's kind of a cult that they were a part of, at least that some people say, or call it a cult. And then it leads to them making these decisions based on what this religious sect that's a branch off of Mormonism kind of happened, and we'll get to how she got there. So it was very interesting to hear about the different relationships that Lori Vallow had throughout her life. She was married multiple times, and every time it seems like she picks the wrong guy, right? They either leave, or they're abusive, or they're being inappropriate with her children, or they just seem like bad guys, until we get to Charles Vallow, who seems like a guy that Colby Ryan and her kids really liked. They adopt JJ together. JJ is actually, I believe, Charles Vallow's sister's biological son, and JJ's grandparents felt like it would be better if he was with this seemingly perfect family, and that's how JJ ends up in their family. Tylee was from a previous marriage of Lori, but Charles Vallow took her in, as well as Colby Ryan, who was again from a previous marriage, but Charles Vallow took him in as well. So that's how this family construct kind of comes together. And we're getting now to one of my two major takeaways. And that is, some of the toughest video for me to watch, obviously, was anything with the children in it. But secondarily to that, Charles Vallow's video outside of his house, where he's trying to explain to law enforcement that his wife has basically lost her mind. She thinks she's a higher being. She thinks she can tell who's zombies. She thinks she can, make these visions from God and tell people what to do, and she thinks she has like a higher power or something. So he's trying to explain this to law enforcement. He kind of sounds crazy when he's explaining it to them. And it brings us to this major point of the mental health evaluations and how people look at mental health in our country, I think, is a major problem. Some people seem crazy. Some people don't seem crazy. When you point somebody out, sometimes you seem crazy for calling somebody else crazy. And we have these preconceived notions that, especially law enforcement officers, if they think they know something, you can't help it. You have these discussions and you think, this is the crazy one, or that's the crazy one, or whatever it may be. And you see that when they finally get to Lori Vallow, after she stole Charles Vallow's car, stole all of his stuff out of the house, including his computers, stole valuable items, committing an absolute felony of grand theft and all sorts of other things, is nowhere to be found, takes the kids, is not at the house where she's supposed to be. Law enforcement confirms all that, and they say there's nothing they can do. Fine. But then Charles goes to JJ's school because he knows that Lori's going to drop him off, and he takes her purse because it has her keys in it so that she can't leave. She gets a spare set of keys and leaves. Then goes and reports him stealing her purse. And it seems like law enforcement was much more interested in that, because they said, we'll try to get that purse. If we can get that purse back, will that be okay? And Lori's like, yeah, I guess that would be okay. Yeah, I was just mad at him, so I took his truck and I took this, admitting to all of this, and law enforcement does nothing. And in the documentary, they actually play the interview, and it is a little bit, flirtatious, and it's like law enforcement just wants to be cool with Lori Vallow. And he even then tries to tell her, oh yeah, they're probably going to have to do this psych eval because he reported it. But you have all these kids, you're probably tired. I hear it's pretty nice. Maybe you'll have like a 3-day relaxing vacation for your psych eval. You're going to pass it. You don't seem crazy to me. And she's very pretty. She's a strikingly pretty woman. And you can see the effect that has on a lot of people throughout this story. So she ends up having that eval, and she's let go. And they think everything's fine. And I think you can tell from some of the recorded conversations with her son and other people that she knows some of the stuff she's saying doesn't make any sense. And that brings us to a little conversation on, religion or different beliefs that people have. And people understand some of the stuff that people believe in religious beliefs. Some people are not going to understand. Some people are not going to believe. Some people are going to disagree with. And that's all fine. But it gets to a point where she is with it enough to explain to people in a way where they don't think she's crazy, even though she absolutely believes certain things. She's able to explain them in a way to still get through a psych eval, still get through law enforcement, and never have any of this stuff really pop up on her until it really hits the fan. And so when we get to a point where she's allowed to leave and then things continue on, and we hear about the setup to get Charles Vallow to the house while Alex Cox, Lori Vallow's brother, is there, and he ends up shooting him in self-defense. And there are conversations with, there's all these weird marriages and things like that going on. But so Charles Vallow is killed. Then Tammy Daybell, Chad Daybell, who is like a, religious leader, writing these books, having these near-death experiences and visions from God, and he can tell who's a zombie or who has a demon in them and who doesn't, and if they have a demon, they should die, and all this crazy stuff. So his wife, Tammy Daybell, Lori ends up meeting Chad Daybell. Lori also has a podcast, which me and my wife were watching this, like, who listens to this podcast? Because it seems insane. But they have this podcast. And so she is very religious. She doesn't think Charles Vallow is her equal. She keeps looking. And then she sees this guy that's kind of high up and raised up and as Daybell. And so she obviously has her sights set on Daybell. They meet. He obviously falls for her. But Tammy's still in the picture. Chad Daybell's wife. She ends up dying of natural causes. And then some time goes by. And when stuff starts to feel suspicious, law enforcement exhumes Tammy's body, meaning takes it out of the grave. And in order for that to happen, you got to have some pretty serious evidence, because you don't want to mess with that usually. So I believe it was the day after they exhume her body, Alex Cox, through hearsay, says to his wife, I think they're going to make me the fall guy. And then I think like the very next day, Alex Cox dies. So Charles Vallow dies. Tammy Daybell dies, both of the exes, and then the person potentially involved in those suspicious killings also dies. So we get to the point where now it's just Lori and Chad and the kids. And what happens? Well, just days after all of these deaths, they're married in Hawaii, and the kids aren't there. And that's when people start trying, and like Colby Ryan, that's when people start saying, what's going on? None of this makes sense. And so they end up, I can't remember what the city was called, but they end up going to this complex where a lot of them are living. They ask where the kids are. They ask Chad Daybell if he knows Lori Vallow. He says he doesn't know her. Meanwhile, they're already married. She lies and says that her co-host on the podcast, which this is how you know you've gone to a crazy sect, because they know Mormons. There are some Mormons in the docuseries, and they're all saying this is not the type of stuff we believe. And when we found out that this is what they're doing, and they're saying I have their kids when I don't have their kids, and they're lying to law enforcement, I'm not going to stick up for them. Like, no, thank you. And that's what Melanie Gibbs, I think her name was. That's what she did. She told law enforcement, this is what happened. Lori told law enforcement her kids were with me, but there actually weren't. Chad Daybell called me, said the cops are going to call you. Don't pick up. Something's obviously wrong. Yes, Rexburg. Thank you, Stace, on the case. Yes, she ordered the ring before Tammy died with Charles Vallow's Amazon account. It's just crazy. So as all this is conspiring, they're lying to everybody, and I'm thinking, what is their end game here? If they know what they did to the kids, and again, takeaway number 2 here. Takeaway number 2, let's get to it. The first one was the mental health system's really broken in our country, I think. Takeaway number 2 is, it's wild to me that this docuseries and all this evidence is being spit out there by Netflix for everyone to see and make their decisions on this case while a criminal case is ongoing. A death penalty murder case and potential trial is ongoing right now. It's wild that we're hearing recorded phone calls, podcasts clipped together, emails, text messages, connecting of the dots, because I got to be honest with you. There's no way you watch this documentary and don't come out on the other side thinking they're absolutely guilty. They did this not only to the kids, but to Tammy, to Charles, to Alex, to everybody. And to me, that's tough to swallow as a lawyer who defends people, that they should still be presumed innocent. And there may be other evidence that is not being produced in this documentary. And that is scary to think about. That is really scary to think about. Because we all know, right, that we have had situations before where we've thought people were guilty and they're not, or we thought they're not guilty and they are, if we're able to watch a trial. People have flipped during different trials. They flipped during Johnny Depp's trial, a lot of people. They flipped during the Rittenhouse trial, a lot of people. They flipped during the, I can't remember the name. It was the professor, the guy hit him with the bike. Gosh, I can't remember that guy's name, but people were flipping back and forth in that trial. Ashley Harris says, no, they are guilty. I hear you. I understand. And I feel the same way after watching that documentary. I'm not going to lie. I feel the same way. It was brutal to watch. I don't usually feel the sort of animosity and physical, like, anger and like my blood was boiling towards people as much as it did during this documentary. So I do understand that completely. Theodore Edgecombe, thank you, T. Hank. You guys are the best, and you add so much to this content. This channel would be literally 5% as good if it wasn't for you all. But yes, so we know, so we're smart enough to understand that, right? Our emotions are at play. We're passionate. We understand. We are logical people. We see this documentary. We think they're guilty. I understand that. But that's my problem. I don't want that to happen based on a Hollywood docuseries as opposed to in a court of law. That's really my big issue here. And some of the stuff that's the most damning to me is when they were playing parts of those hearings where Chad Daybell just lied to law enforcement. He lied left, right, and center about where they were, about what they were doing, about whether or not they were married, about killing a raccoon and burning some branches. So I really think that this case and this documentary is scary because of that, because this criminal trial hadn't. If they've already been convicted, I think this docuseries is a lot more beneficial personally to me, in my opinion. But it's going to be really hard to pick an unbiased jury. It's going to be really hard to find a jury that knows nothing about this case, in that jurisdiction especially. And I really think that this documentary was put together pretty well, I think. And some people are asking how much of it is fact-based, Tori said, and Linda said, why worry about the cameras in the courtroom? And I kind of agree about the cameras, but it was pretty fact-based. I mean, we have her own voice in recorded phone calls, her own voice on a podcast she did, text messages from her family members' phones and emails from her family members' phones, police body cam footage from Charles Vallow when he was trying to find out what was going on when she took all the stuff from his house, and while after the self-defense shooting, Charles Vallow's body blurred out, but his body on the ground was in this docuseries. People asking, do they make money off of this? I don't know. I felt uncomfortable with some of Colby Ryan's parts, if I'm being honest with you. Like the ending with the goodbye to his siblings, like it was just, I felt uncomfortable. I feel so horrible for him. I feel so horrible. Like he's the only one in this totally messed up family and world. And me and Whitney were talking about how did he make it out of this? And I think it was like his wife saying, no, we're cutting that part of your family off. We're leaving. But all the people that kept coming to Lori Vallow and wanting to try to force her to do something or change something. I mean, there is a trail of bodies. When you're asking who makes money, if you're asking Colby Ryan, I would guess he made money. I would guess they paid for the trip to Hawaii. That's pure speculation, though. Yeah, they've changed the trial jurisdiction, but it's still in the same state. Yeah, Colby and his wife were having issues. We did a video on that, and they were having issues at the time, as he said. So it's really something. And Mo left this note on her way out. Love you, but I'm going to sit this one out. Tylee looked like she could be my daughter's twin. Can't handle this case. Everyone liked the video. Mo, I'm with you. It was brutal. My son was about the age of JJ in a lot of those videos. And it's almost like you have to watch it and try to think about it differently, because you really can't, deal with it that way. It is so brutal to think about this case in reality and what it means. And that's why I'm pretty confident this is going to end in a guilty verdict. I mean, I'm about positive it's going to end in a guilty verdict of messing with evidence or messing with a dead body after it was dead. Now, whether or not they can prove that they actually committed the murder, we'll see. But I think that this really was a horrifying case. I mean, brutal from the jump. Let me check my notes here from while I was watching the documentary, if there was anything else I found interesting. Yeah, they also had, like, again, was it fact-based? Words from Lori's mouth at podcasts and conferences. Same thing with Chad Daybell, from his book, from his conferences, saying these things like, this is when the world's going to end. These are the people. This is how I code people 4.1 demon or whatever, like very strange things. And they're zombies and we have to rid them from their bodies. And they use these like code words. Very, very strange. The whole thing surrounding Charles Vallow's death was so sketchy. And, we can get into the details if you guys have questions about it. They didn't call 911 until 43 minutes after Alex called Lori. Oh, the life insurance policies. She called to try to get the $1 million life insurance policy. Daybell did actually get $430,000 from his wife's life insurance policy. And then a big problem is anybody that would disagree with them, they would then blame that somebody else is influencing them. David, the guy that was podcasting with Melanie and Lori, was a bad influence on Melanie because basically he was like, this is not right what they're doing. And he's going to be a key witness in the case, it seems. Oh, and also a very interesting part of the case, just kind of how life is going now, is electronically. Electronic data that can be pulled and used as evidence is going to be a huge part of this case. Because they got pictures from Lori's iCloud account to see where the children were last seen and where they were last seen and with whom. And Alex Cox was one of the ones that they were last seen with. And then they pinged Alex Cox's phone to Chad Daybell's property, where it was around the property, and that's where they were searching. And it is really, really interesting how it worked. And yeah, Bodie is asking, are they competent to stand trial? And that's another interesting part about this. Mental health is a big part of this because she was fine in the evaluation when Charles Vallow was complaining about her. She was not fine when her lawyer filed the motion and people said, I don't think she's competent to stand trial. She was found not competent for months and months and months, but now she is competent to stand trial. Believing that there are demons in people and they're zombies and you have to rid their bodies by killing them, and believing that you have visions from God and that you know when the world's going to end and you think you're doing this crusade, that does not make you not competent to stand trial. If you understand that if you lose this trial, you could get the death penalty, you could go to prison for life, you could go to prison for X amount of years, depending on what charge you get convicted of. If you understand they're going to call witnesses to the stand that are going to present evidence, you have the right to testify, or you could say, I don't want to testify. You have that constitutional right. If you understand all that, then you're competent to stand trial, regardless of what your religious beliefs are. So that's the difference. It really is different. Now, some people have tried to say in certain case law that I thought I was killing a demon, not killing a person. And there's case law on if you intended to kill that person, then you still could. But if you thought that you were just smashing a pumpkin with a hammer, but it was actually a person, then maybe you have an insanity defense. So it is a very interesting case. So let me text our guest here to see if we can get her in the shot and see what she thought. You guys have any guesses as to who the special guest is to talk about this wild documentary with us? If you have a guess, put it in the chat now or in the comments if you're part of the rewatch crew. Because she had some interesting questions about the docuseries, about the case, knew nothing about the case, and was basically learning on the fly. So to me, it's always interesting to get that sort of perspective. And I get a lot of that perspective from you all. So what we're going to do is bring her in, get her perspective, and then we'll get to all your questions and answers. And because it's going to be later in the video, for all of you that want to do some fun questions about golf or whatever it is, we can do that at the end. For all the people that are just here for the Lori Vallow stuff, we're going to hit all that first, and then we can get to the fun questions at the end. So we will do that. As soon as she is available, she will be in. So let's get to some questions now, and we will pause the questions. Yes, a lot of you are guessing right. So we will see. Mrs. Lawyer, you know. So basically everybody is guessing either Whitney or Emily D. Baker. And it is Whitney. Whitney is joining the show here in a few minutes. Somebody said, of course, the misses in a few minutes. Emily Baker would be awesome, and hopefully we get that one day. We have reached out many times. We've connected a few times, but she's never been able to make it on, which is cool. That's no big deal. Eventually, maybe it'll happen, but that day is not today. And here she comes. All right. So as we get into this, you can throw your questions in the chat, and I'm going to pass off one of the earbuds. Let me know if you can hear her when she tests out this earbud. All right, let's scoot it over here. All right, go ahead. Give us a little test on the mic.
Hello?
Can everybody hear?
I can't hear. Am I supposed to be hearing?
No, there's nothing for us to hear.
Oh. Okay.
Emily gave me a shout out today. Huh. I'll have to, on the 50 Cent case. Interesting. Okay, I'll have to watch that. So it's a 50 Cent video. I'll take a look. Okay, good. Lois told us, yep. Hilbina told us, yep, we can hear Whitney. All right, good. So we got that all worked out. I mean, we're in a hotel room. We have just the Wi-Fi. They don't have the upgraded Wi-Fi. It hasn't frozen at all yet. And we're sharing AirPods here to try to make this happen. So I'm glad you guys can hear us. Thank you, Curious AF. So Whit, tell us a little bit about your overall thoughts about the sins of our mother and what kind of struck you about the case.
Overall thoughts was like horrifying, so sad to me. What struck me, I think, like first, when I first think about it, my first thought is how sad the police interview was with her ex-husband
Vallow. With Charles Vallow.
Yeah. When he was trying so hard to get them to like look into her and her mental health and like explaining to them how she'd lost it and how he was honestly fearful for his kids. That like broke my heart to watch that, knowing what happened. And then I also thought it was so interesting to me that when the documentary said she did go in for the evaluation.
The psych eval, yeah.
She went in for the evaluation and passed it. Like they didn't think there was anything wrong with her mental competency.
So that was kind of like a Baker Act. It was almost like a Baker Act because he said they were asking Charles Vallow questions like, why do you think she's a danger to you? Why do you think she's a danger to somebody else? People are saying they can't hear you as well. So let me try this. Let me see if I can maybe we'll try it without the AirPods. Let's try this. All right. So we switched it to the computer microphone. Does that sound better?
Testing. Get closer to the mic.
No.
Is
Don't.
there a mic?
They don't know what. No. Just. Well, let us know if you can hear us better now. We're on the computer mic, or we can switch it back to the AirPods. So that's why they were asking Charles Vallow questions like, is she a danger to you? Is she a danger to the kids? Is she a danger to herself? People are saying that's better. All right, we'll just go with the laptop mic. So they're asking those questions because it's kind of like a Baker Act. So when you go in there and they ask you questions, they're basically trying to feel if you're a danger to yourself or someone else. And earlier in the video, I was talking about when you have these religious beliefs, and we talked about this a little bit, how sometimes they sound crazy. Right. So my guess is she was able to answer questions in a way that she seemed like she was perfectly fine during the Baker, we'll call it a Baker Act. I don't know what it's called there.
Yeah, but that was wild to me, how she knew well enough
exactly
to answer those questions in a way that didn't make her sound
exactly
as crazy as she obviously.
Correct. But then she's not competent to stand trial, which means when she gets arrested and they go through that process, something must have changed. Maybe something broke, but we still hear her talking to Chad Daybell on the phone. And it seems like she's understanding what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And she understands kind of how the process is going when she's talking to Chad Daybell. And he says stuff like, they're searching the house. Oh, the house? And you can tell she's like, as long as it's the house, we should be fine. And he's like, no, the property. And to me, it's like, that's they know.
Yeah.
They know they're cooked at that point. So there is some understanding with the process. But yet
very strange responses, don't you think?
100%.
Such a weird response to knowing that they're about to find bodies that you have buried in your yard.
Your kids.
They were very
it's just insane. They were flat affect. But I think that's the point, is they believe that they were doing this thing, killing the zombies or whatever. They do believe that. I think that's the only thing that really is the only thing that makes sense as to what their affect is. So people have some questions here. They said, Whitney, do you think you could be a juror on this case?
No, I don't think I'd be a good juror.
Period, or just on this case?
I mean, I just feel I'm way too emotional. I think it would be really hard for me to separate.
Well, let me ask it this way. Now that you've seen the documentary, if a lawyer were to ask you a question in jury selection, okay, who here's seen the documentary? You raise your hand. Did that documentary make you think that the defendant is guilty? Or does it make you struggle knowing that the defendant is presumed innocent as she sits there and as he sits there? Do you think that that's true? Can you presume that they did nothing wrong at this point until you see the evidence?
I don't think I could.
Well, you can't be wishy-washy. You got to say, yeah, I could, or no, I could.
No.
Yeah, you could. Right.
No,
and I really think that this documentary did that. I think if you watch this documentary, it's out. They lose. Thanks, Ellen.
I was really curious about Chad Daybell's 5 kids after I watched that documentary, because I don't feel like they really talked about his family or his kids at all. And so I looked it up later because I was just curious as to where his kids are. And I saw a few different things. I didn't really read into it, but a few different articles that were saying that they are maintaining their father's innocence. They feel like he was
duped by Lori.
Kind of set up. Now, I didn't get any of that from that specific documentary, but it is an interesting.
Does anybody else out there in the chat world know anything about Daybell's kids? Because he had 5 kids, 6 kids, something like that.
5 kids.
And we heard from Lori's kids, but I will say the trail of bodies really is behind Lori Vallow.
Right.
And it doesn't seem like Chad Daybell had anything like that in his past until he met Lori Vallow. But I don't know. I guess that is possible. Oh, Leanne, of course, you could think people are evil without murdering them, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Tori, Whitney, honest thoughts on Peter's increasing fame on YouTube. Do you get any perks of his fame?
I think it's awesome.
It's not fame, okay? It's not fame really at all. People ask me, oh, you get recognized. I've literally never been recognized. Nobody out in the wild has ever said,
lawyer,
Yeah, nobody's ever done that.
I'm waiting. That'll be fun.
Tracy hating on my hat. I like my hat, Tracy.
Oh, I think your hat's so cute.
Oh, the non-curved brim is not flattering. That's okay. That's okay. Let's see what else we got here. I saw a couple other questions. So Vina says, I don't believe they believe. I think it's all about power. Interesting. Vivian, thanks for the super
She
sticker.
definitely has some very strange way of like manipulating people. It's like frightening. Like it is just, it's scary. That she's scary. She's scary.
I agree. Lori Mall. The documentary disturbed me so much because I am Mormon. It infuriated me. I'm sure it did. And the same thing with all these religions that can be, you know, radicalized, or sects of them give you the picture for the whole thing, for like what you think of everybody in that religion. And it's really sad. It is really sad.
She definitely, to me, just seems so far out there. Like, I don't think she's representing anything like, well, like she's just so beyond.
Sandra Copeland said this case has gone to trial, ? No, not live, no cameras. No, it hasn't gone to trial yet. It is going to trial, and there are cameras in the courtroom at this point. They've just filed a motion to kind of limit it. I don't think he's going to ban cameras. I think it will be limited a bit, but we'll be able to watch this trial live. I believe so, and I will be covering it.
Do you know if they're being charged with the same things?
Yeah,
Chad and Lori?
For the most part, yes. Murder, mishandling of the body.
But it'll be 2 separate trials.
No, trials together.
They're being tried
together. Yep. They tried to make it 2 separate. Judge said, no, we're going to try them together. Ellen is a new member. Awesome. Ellen all over this chat. Let's see what else we got. Yeah, people saying they all love Chad. Yeah, but Colby was honest when he said, like, I thought he was just, you know, lying to cover up his cheating, because that's what his mom told him. So, you know, it's just like any relationship. And we've seen other trials where you have these fractured relationships and how the kids get involved and they don't know what to believe, you know. And the whole bat story with Tylee, she admitted in the interview that she brought the bat into the room. And the bat was the nexus for the self-defense, because then Charles apparently had the bat hit Alex and Alex shot him.
Was Alex never charged for?
I can't remember if I can't remember if he got charged with anything or not, but he died.
I know he died, but
yeah,
I don't remember him being like in jail in the documentary or them mentioning it. I don't think he.
Yeah, Annalise saying the trial's set for January 2023, but I think it's going to get continued personally. Could be wrong. So people are going to say, I think they're going to blame Alex. Well, in the documentary, and this was the other thing I wanted to say. So in the documentary, Lori's mom was in it a lot, and it was hard to watch some of it. But sorry, I'm reading other chats as I'm losing my train of thought. But the mom said that she thinks when Alex was carrying JJ in, that he was already gone. When he was carrying him in one day, when he was too much for Lori. And also the mom was the perfect example, and why I think it is so impossible to watch this documentary and then go be a fair juror. The mom was going on TV with one of Lori's sisters saying they believe she was innocent. She didn't do it. No way. Mm-hmm. But then after she saw what was shown in this documentary, basically, she has now flipped on her own daughter, who she thought was the best mother in the world and could never do something like this. Now she believes she's done it. And that's the evidence to me that this documentary is going to make it near impossible to walk in there giving Lori a presumption of innocence.
I thought the mom flipped her script when they found the bodies in the yard.
That's my point. Yeah, what was shown in this documentary.
Like, okay.
Right.
Because I think she honestly thought that the kids were alive.
Right.
And that Lori knew where they were and was keeping them safe in some way. Like, that's what she maintained for a really long time. And then I think when it turned out that they were not, she was like, okay.
Correct. But that's my point. All the stuff that was said on the documentary. So if you watched it with the mom and you're tracking with the mom saying, no, Lori doesn't seem like the type of person who could do this. Then the mom flips, who knows Lori's best. And you're thinking, so obviously I agree with that. That's the tough part about actually having an active criminal case going. Lori texting Charles's kids, their father was saying, yes, life's a journey. We both were.
I was horrified.
It's like, are you serious? That's pretty much all you need to know.
And not answering them when they were asked, oh my gosh.
Like she's busy or something. That was brutal. That was that was where my blood was boiling. I talked earlier, like there were a couple parts where my blood was just boiling in this. Yeah. That was one of them. Like, how can you do that? And then she told 5 different stories about how he died, to the school, to these kids, to other people. It's tough.
It is. It's terrible.
So a lot of people saying they think they're going to point the finger at Alex. It makes sense.
Yeah.
They very well may.
He said that too, I think, in the documentary, or somebody
He's going to be the scapegoat.
he was the fall guy. which seemed likely.
Joe, do you think lawyers use the insanity plea too often or the accused use it too much? No, not necessarily. It is really tough. It doesn't have a very high success rate. You don't win all the time by just saying they're insane. You have to have medical backing. You have to have a doctor say it. You can't, the lawyer doesn't just pick like, hey, I'm going to do an insanity plea on this case. You have to have the medical backing as well. Let's see. Yeah. What really gets me is the kids and the grandparents. It's just, yeah, it's really, really
so
brutal.
Sad. So sad. Crazy.
Azam asked, do they have a jury at this point? No, they don't pick the jury here until right before the trial.
Do you think that police footage of the interview with Charles and then the questioning they did of Lori when they were kind of like joking around, do you think that will come into the trial at all?
So I don't think that it will for the trial dealing with the kids because I'm not sure that's relevant.
Oh.
And I think it could be other bad acts that aren't necessarily like it makes her look bad, but doesn't necessarily prove or disprove that she committed those murders.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what else.
Oh, and also about the, like how the mother, Lori's mom said that she thought JJ had already passed when he came in with Alex. Didn't the documentary show that picture of him in those pajamas? And then that's what they found him in. So couldn't they maybe cross those dates?
Yeah, I guess that's true to see if when he carried him in, he was wearing those pajamas. Yeah, that was brutal too to see him in those pajamas.
So sick. Oh, terrible.
All right, let's see here.
It like frustrates me, like in the phone interviews when Colby was asking his mom all those questions, like what's going on, like what happened, where, you know, and how she just never answers anything. That like drives me crazy. I'm like, I need an answer.
Someone asked how Alex died. I think it was like a heart attack or something. It was natural causes. It was not anything, you know, that you could prove, I guess.
I can't remember.
Let's see what else we got. Yeah, Mark Means was involved for a while. Not anymore. Joe said she hasn't seen it. I think you mean the blood clot. Sue said that may have been.
Oh yeah,
and that runs in the family.
Yep,
they said too. Yeah, that makes sense.
That's right.
Joe said she hasn't seen it. I think she means the documentary, so she'll be able to watch it a little clearer when the trial's going on. Hopefully, his kids support him still. Marianne said about Daybell. Beach Lou said, yeah, aneurysm. Yeah,
Chad Daybell's kids.
Don't realize how lucky they are.
That's what I kept saying about Colby, about the kid that was doing.
Well, yeah, but they had Colby's wife as a 4.41.
I know. I'm like, how
demon
did they
or whatever
escape this like witch hunt? You know?
Yeah. No, and it is really sad, and it's like you look at that, and nobody he loves is a zombie that needs to be killed. Nobody that Daybell loves. You know, that's like how it's just like that's why people don't have that much power, and why people don't play judge, jury, and executioner. That just, it doesn't work like that. We are all messed up in certain ways and are going to end up using something for our selfish gain, just like this situation turned out to be, which was, you know, really tough. And you look at that, and yeah, Colby was older. Debbie said, yeah, he kind of had his own life and, you know, was away from them. He wasn't bothering them. That's what I see it as. It's like Charles kept bothering them, kept going to Arizona.
Yeah.
So he had to be eliminated. Tammy wasn't going away, so she had to be eliminated. The kids were probably like anchors to them, and that's what had happened. That's what they did. They became so self-consumed that they couldn't see anything else clearly, and it's incredibly sad, and you just can't understand how people get there. But we will see. Emily, what was the end goal? Who knows? I think it was in Nexburg so that he could start what he believed to be the new Jerusalem, and he could be king of the castle, basically.
Like
Chad Daybell.
Do you think they genuinely believed this?
I think they maybe like started out genuinely believing it, and then they started thinking like, how great would it be if everyone came and worshiped me and everyone did whatever I told them to, and I could run this cult or commune or whatever.
Will it be different if they proved that they genuinely believed what they were doing was not like wrong? Or like, would that be different in a court?
If they didn't understand right from wrong or what they were doing, not they thought killing them was the right thing
Okay.
because their religion. That's
They
still
can't
murder.
just like break the law.
Right.
because they think
Exactly.
it's-
Exactly. So you can't sovereign citizen them
Yeah.
like these laws have no power over me. That's what a lot of people go in and say sometimes, and it's
Yeah.
just it's brutal. It's brutal. All right, we are going to do about maybe three or four more minutes of questions before we head out of here. Whitney, thank you for sharing Peter with us all the time. He really helps us understand the law in ways we never did before. Thank you and have a wonderful vacation.
You guys are great.
She reads the comments a lot. And it's
yeah.
like, people are so nice.
I love it.
Most of them.
It's so great. It's such a cool community. It's really fun. You guys make it really fun.
Eisgol. Both of them may have similar disorders. She targeted him, and I think they are really in love. There is no chance that you can find someone as psycho as yourself twice. There is equal creepiness. Two horrible became one scary. Yeah, I mean, to me, it really is a situation where it seemed like, with Lori at least, she was looking for somebody as extreme as her.
Yeah.
And she found it with Chad Daybell because, Charles wasn't her spiritual equal, she said. And she was doing these podcasts, and then she comes across a guy that writes books.
Oh, yeah.
Who had near-death experiences and is speaking at conferences. So she looks up to him. She goes and gets him. And then this ensues. And this comment kind of makes sense. Like they looked in the mirror and saw somebody that was equally as, gone off the ledge as them. And then boom, they go together and this is what happens. Joanne is a new member just in time too, because this week we are also going to do our members only chat. It is going to be a video for everybody, but members only chat. We're going to be breaking down Jan and Michael Scott's deposition from The Office, which is hilarious. And then I'm going to give a couple songs about the law that are just fun to kind of break down and talk with. It's always a lighthearted, more fun, not serious, not dealing with topics like this that are so sad and difficult to deal with. But I appreciate everyone who joined us. Thanks, Whit, for coming on. It was a lot of fun. Was glad we were able to do this. Was glad we were able to watch the documentary on the way up on the plane. We learned a lot from it. And again, this is why I don't love stuff like this coming out before trials happen, because to me, it makes the system not work the way that it should. And that's always something I have a beef with, as a lawyer in our judicial system. To me, I wish this would not have come out until after the trial, just me personally. I did think it was an interesting watch. I thought the timeline really helped a lot. And I think there was a lot more to understand after watching this. Let's get a Zom's comment on the way out. I second Tori's comment. Thanks, Whitney. Peter is very good teacher regarding the law and stuff. Have a wonderful vacation, guys. I appreciate it. Hold on. Let's get a couple. The member chat's coming up, Chloe. Since I'm on vacation, I don't have them planned out very much in advance. Is Whitney a golfer? No, she is not. Does she ever watch me play golf? Somebody asked. No, not really. It's not great to watch. I'm a lucky guy, Aaron, Anon. I agree with you. Have a wonderful vacation. You guys are all awesome. Thank you. All right. Appreciate you all. We're out of here. Until next time.
Bye, guys.